Today we need to talk about something that's becoming harder to ignore, the increasing tension in the global economy, and what it really means for markets, investors, and everyday people like us. Right now, there's more noise than signal out there. So let's try to break it down: what's happening, what could happen, and what we should be watching. Let's start with the big picture. There are essentially three main scenarios that could unfold over the coming months, and each one has massive implications. Scenario 1 is the optimistic one. The US manages to de-escalate trade tensions not just with traditional allies like the EU, Japan, South Korea, India, and Taiwan, but also with China. If meaningful negotiations take place and succeed across the board, then we avoid a US recession, and by extension, a global one. That would be a massive relief to markets. You'd likely see global stock indices rally into the end of the year. Confidence would return, capital would flow, and companies could resume expansion plans. That's the best case outcome. Now, scenario 2 is the nightmare. Talks completely fall apart, not only with China, but even with allies. That's full-scale protectionism, across multiple regions. We'd be facing not just a slowdown, but an actual recession in the US, with global spillovers. It would hit consumer demand, crush business investment, spike uncertainty, and freeze global trade routes. Markets wouldn't just dip, they'd tumble. That's the worst-case scenario. But the third scenario, and let's be honest, the most realistic right now, is somewhere in the middle. In this version, the US manages to de-escalate trade tensions with its allies. Maybe there's progress with Europe. Maybe deals get made with Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, even India. But not with China. If tensions with China continue to escalate, particularly on tech, EVs, and semiconductors, then we're not in a full-blown recession, but we're dangerously close. It's a precarious position where inflation remains sticky, growth slows down, and markets trade in a narrow, volatile range. A limbo state, not a crisis, but not stability either. Now here's where it gets more serious. There's growing speculation that what's really unfolding isn't just a trade dispute, it's the start of a much deeper reordering of the global economy. We might be witnessing the early stages of a world splitting into two distinct economic spheres. On one side, the US and its Western allies. On the other, China and its own network of influence. And if that's the case, the implications go way beyond tariffs. We're talking about restrictions on technology, on capital flows, on direct investment, on semiconductors, on rare earth metals. This is a strategy of containment, not cooperation. From Beijing's perspective, this looks like the US trying to prevent its rise, to halt its tech development, to deny it global influence. And that's exactly why Taiwan is the red line. Right now, China is holding back from taking Taiwan, through invasion or blockade, because it knows the US could respond with full-blown economic retaliation, just like with Russia. We're talking trade bans, financial sanctions, frozen assets. That would be devastating for China. But if the US keeps ramping up tariffs, threatening tech bans, and pushing toward total containment, China may feel it has nothing to lose. And that's when this Cold War risks turning hot. And here's the scary part: if war breaks out over Taiwan, it won't be a limited, conventional war. It will immediately become a global economic crisis, or worse, a broader military conflict involving nuclear-armed powers. That's the endgame no one wants. Which is why a grand bargain is still on the table. A grand bargain wouldn't mean friendship, but it would mean boundaries. The US and China could agree to decouple strategically, on chips, AI, defense tech, while continuing to trade in other areas. Cheap consumer goods? Fine. Smartphones, toys, clothes, no one's worried about that. But advanced technologies? That's where the red lines get drawn. So what does China do in response to this economic squeeze? Well, they've got a lot of levers they can pull. They could inject more fiscal stimulus. They could ease monetary policy further. They could weaken the yuan, though too much devaluation risks capital flight. They could also start targeting US companies in China. Tesla, Apple, anyone with significant revenue exposure. They could impose tech bans of their own. Restrict access to rare earth metals, which, by the way, they dominate globally in processing. That could stall Western EV and defense industries overnight. And while all of this unfolds, Xi Jinping doesn't face re-election. He can play the long game. Meanwhile, the US is headed into a contentious election cycle. If a recession hits, the political consequences could reshape America's trajectory for years. Now, here's something most people don't consider. It's not just the tariffs themselves that do damage. It's the uncertainty around them. Right now, CEOs in New York and Shanghai are asking the same question. Are we pricing goods at 0% tariff? 25%? 145%? No one knows. So they delay. They hold off hiring. They pause factory expansion. That's economic drag. But, even if tariffs were permanent and predictable, if they were set at 145%, the economic pain would still be real. That's the other myth. This isn't just about uncertainty. It's about cost. Hard, unavoidable cost. If the US slaps 100% plus tariffs on Chinese goods, and Europe or Japan get caught in the crossfire, global supply chains fracture. Prices spike. Consumer spending drops. And the odds of a synchronized recession go up fast. So, where does this all go? Well, if we de-escalate, even partially, markets could recover. Capital will flow back in. Confidence will return. But if tensions keep rising, and containment becomes the new normal, then the volatility we're seeing now could just be the beginning. It's a critical moment, not just for trade, but for the future of global economic cooperation. Let's hope cooler heads prevail. Thanks for watching. If you found this helpful, be sure to like, subscribe, and drop your thoughts in the comments. This story is evolving fast, and we'll keep following it right here.